Hello, today on Arts 24, an Oscar-winning filmmaker is here to tell us about his incredible new work.
Hello, my name is Adam Elliot and I'm the writer and director of my new feature stop-motion film, Memoir of a Snail. This film is 100% in camera. There's not one single frame of CGI, so every prop, set and character is something that you could hold in your hand. And this film, like all my other films, is for adults, and it's the tale of a very lonely woman living in Canberra in the 1970s who hoards ornamental snails.
Memoir of a Snail is a whimsical and tear-jerking Australian stop-motion film about separated twins. It has rave reviews and won the Cristal Award for Best Feature at the world's top animation festival, Annecy in the south of France. The film also took the top prize at the London Film Festival last year and was nominated for a Golden Globe. Adam is also sharing his creative process in an exhibition in Melbourne, Australia. Adam, welcome to the show. Welcome to Paris.
Thank you, Eve.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, Memoir of a Snail is your 7th film.
Yep.
It's set in Australia, but Paris actually plays a special role in the story. One of the characters dreams of being a street performer in Paris, and the father in the film, Percy, is actually voiced by a French actor called Dominique Pinon, who we know from Amélie. In the past, you actually made a short film called Ernie Biscuit, which was about a Parisian taxidermist. Tell us about these nods to France in your work.
Oh, look, I've always had, like most people around the world, have a love affair with France. And actually, my very first short film, Uncle, premiered at the Annecy Animation Festival back in 1997. And the French loved it way more than the Australian public loved it. So I knew from that very moment there was something about France. The French understood what I was trying to say.
They certainly do. And Memoir of a Snail touches on heavy themes like childhood trauma, addiction, poverty, homophobia, religious extremism and disability, just to name a few.
Yeah.
It's dark, but it's also filled with a lot of humour. Can you tell us where the idea came from?
Sure. Well, look, my father, when he passed away, left behind a big hoard of stuff, and I became fascinated with why, as human beings, we collect things. And so that kicked it off, and I did a lot of research into hoarding. And I knew I wanted to make a film that was a mix of comedy and tragedy. My father was an acrobatic clown, a vaudevillian. And when I left film school, he said, "What are you?" And I said, "I'm an auteur, I'm a writer-director. It's a French word, Dad." And he said, "Oh, well, look, you know, whatever you do, make sure you make them laugh, make sure they cry." And that's what I've always tried to do with all my films, is have that nice balance between comedy and tragedy, light and dark.
And the main character, she's called Grace Pudel. She's there in front of you, and she's a hoarder. She struggles with the trauma of her parents' death. Succession, Sarah Snook actually voices her, and her twin brother Gilbert is voiced by Cody Smith-McPhee. What drew you to these characters?
Well, look, I love everyday people. I love telling stories about people who are perceived as being marginalised or misunderstood. I love the underdog. I love telling stories about people who just have suffered a lot of bad luck, and you wouldn't say my characters are heroic, but they certainly are courageous, and all my films, you know, really celebrate the underdog.
Okay, well, let's take a look now at Grace and her twin brother Gilbert during their childhood at home with their French father, who's an alcoholic, paraplegic mouth juggler, played by, as we said, the French actor Dominique Pinon.
We were free to do what we wanted, Sylvia. He said childhood was life's best season. It never lasts, but everyone deserves one.
Oh, mon fils! Bravo, Gilbert!
He was so proud Gilbert wanted to be a performer. Follow in his footsteps.
Bravo!
That night, we got out Mum's jewellery box and sang our heads off.
Everything is just so detailed, and you actually spent something like 8 years creating this film. Everything is handmade, as well as the props. There's 3,500 props or something like that. There's no CGI. In this era, of course, of AI, why did you want to do it like this?
Well, I think at the moment, you know, now that AI has arrived and is here with us, I think there's a greater appreciation of things that are handcrafted. And stop motion as an art form is alive and well. And even though we're sort of drowning in CGI and digital content, it's never been as popular. So big directors like Guillermo del Toro and Wes Anderson are all making stop-motion films. And I think when the audience see those fingerprints on the clay, they know that what they're watching is something real and tangible.
And unique as well.
And unique, and something they could hold in their hands. And I think that's why it's so popular.
And your stories often cross boundaries and they challenge audiences. This one especially does. There's a sequence about gay conversion therapy. One memorable quote from the film for me is "Pray the gay away,"
Yes.
where you're sort of lampooning fundamentalist Christians. Do you have any personal experience with this sort of therapy? Where did this idea come from?
Well, look, yeah, sadly around the world, the gay conversion therapy, which is an odd word anyway, is still practiced. But luckily, a lot of countries are now banning it. In Australia, it's now almost banned completely. And here in France, it has been banned. But sadly, you know, it's 2025 and it's the idea, it's almost like trying to change the colour of somebody's eyes. It's a ridiculous notion. It doesn't work. And so, yeah, I do like raising subject matter in my films that's challenging and I do love a bit of social commentary. But I try and balance that with comedy as well and present material with a sort of a smile if possible.
And do you get any feedback from audiences about subjects like that?
Oh, absolutely. With this film, we've had nothing but positive feedback and also sad stories from people who've unfortunately gone through this this horrible procedure. And yeah, it's good because you realise as a filmmaker too, your films can reach a very wide audience and you have a degree of responsibility, I think, as a director to present subject matter that is thought-provoking. Unlike being a painter, you know, you paint a canvas and that goes in a gallery and a few thousand people might see it. With a feature film, millions of people can end up seeing it.
Well, one character who appears in the film, Harvey Crumpet, is a character from your 2003 Oscar-winning short film. He actually appears in all your films. We'll talk about him in a minute, but let's take a quick look at his work.
One time, Harvey got a job collecting golf balls. This is where he got struck by lightning. But he survived, and even made it into the local newspaper. Harvey began to wonder how he'd survived so much bad luck. Maybe he was like a cat and had 9 lives. He thought he had about 4 left.
So that's Harvey Crumpet, who appears in all of your works. He was in your Oscar-winning film more than 20 years ago. Why is he an important character for you?
Well, Harvey really changed my life. That film was narrated by Geoffrey Rush, a fellow Australian famous actor. And it really made people aware that you can make animated films that are for adults. And that film also did well at Annecy and then allowed me to make my first feature film, Mary Max, with Philip Seymour Hoffman and Toni Collette and Barry Humphries. So, yeah, that film changed my life. Not many films do change people's lives, but when you win an Academy Award, everything is turned upside down.
Okay, well, you also actually have an exhibition at the moment where people can find out more about your creative process at Australia's National Museum of Screen Culture, ACMI. Let's take a look at one of your highlights there.
So this is really probably my favourite part of the exhibition. Over there we have Grace eating her Chico roll, and Grace is voiced by Sarah Snook. Standing next to her is her love interest Ken, voiced by the wonderful Tony Armstrong. And over here we have Pinky, who played by the wonderful Jackie Weaver, who generously loaned us her voice. And this is Grace in her hoard. Grace is a hoarder. Every prop, set and character in the film has been handmade. There's no CGI, no AI. Everything you see is something real and tangible that you could hold in your hand.
So, Adam, from winning an Oscar for Harvey Crumpet to winning top prizes at festivals like the Annecy Film Festival, your work clearly resonates with audiences all over the world. What do you hope the audience take away from this film and from the exhibition?
Well, look, I love it when the lights go on in a cinema and you see that people have had a good laugh, but also you see people with their tissues out. And it's a weird thing to aim for, but I love it when people have shed a tear, because as a filmmaker, it means that I've connected. But ultimately, look, you know, I just want them to have had a good time, that they've had a laugh, and they tell their friends. And you know, there's that expression, you're only as good as your last film, and so you really need each film to be successful both critically and commercially to allow you to then go make the next one.
Okay, well, Memoir of a Snail is actually being released in France next week on January the 15th. And be sure to visit Adam's exhibition at ACMI if you're in Melbourne. We always end our shows with our guests' cultural pick of the moment. What have you chosen for us?
Well, at the moment, there's a wonderful exhibition in Melbourne by Yayoi Kusama, the Japanese artist who's now, I think, in her late 80s, and it's a wonderful retrospective of all her work. You might know her work for, she's actually one of the artists who contributes to the Louis Vuitton works, and just such a joyous artist. She loves polka dots. I know behind you you're surrounded by dots. And so if you're in Melbourne, yeah, definitely go and see it.
Melbourne is very close to your heart, isn't it? I know it's where you live. You like celebrating it. And your last film is really a love letter to it, isn't it?
Yes, look, I think as an Australian storyteller, it's important that I tell stories about my hometown. You know, Australia, we are, you know, sort of, we watch a lot of American cinema, a lot of American TV, a lot of British TV. So I think it's important that we make as much Australian content as possible.
Okay, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show, Adam. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eve.
We're going to leave you now with some images from the exhibition at the Victoria National Gallery in Melbourne, which is on until the 21st of April. Thanks for watching. See you next time.